You've been successful saving for retirement, but in retirement, the planning changes, and there are 5 dangerous blind spots I commonly see people missing. I want to save you the harm to your retirement plan by helping you identify and overcome these blind spots. Now, before we jump into the first of these dangerous blind spots, you might be wondering, what causes retirees to miss these critical issues? When you're planning for retirement, you can overcome any missteps by earning more money. But during those working years, you're essentially solidifying your retirement while working. If you're a good saver, you'll set yourself up better for retirement and vice versa. But the consequences of making mistakes in retirement are magnified because it's more difficult to make up ground when you don't have a working income. What you've saved is largely what you have to work with. The key is understanding that once you cross that line into retirement, the planning changes. And yes, there are some financial principles that won't change, like you should still live within your means, you should set goals, but the objectives change and so do the solutions. I'll point out some examples of this with the 5 blind spots. So let's dig in. Many fail to realize the importance of this next step until it's too late. As I mentioned, during your working years, you're setting up your retirement, good or bad. Well, you don't want to get this first step wrong. Once you pull the trigger, there are things you can do to improve or enhance your retirement decision, but far too many people never know when to commit to an actual retirement date because they're unsure how much money they need. Now, there are rules of thumb. If you have 10 to 12 times your current income, you have enough for retirement. Or you could take it a rule of thumb further. If you know how much income you need to withdraw from your investments and use the 4% rule, inversely, that means you need to save 25 times your expenses. But the truth is that magic number doesn't exist. Rules of thumb are good for maybe getting in the ballpark, but you cannot be defined by a number. You're different. You have different income streams than your coworker. Maybe you'll be totally debt-free soon into retirement. These are all factors that can't be summed up in a rule of thumb. That's why a dynamic plan that factors in your finances and your priorities and then adjusts for your life's changes is miles ahead of rules of thumb. Take it a step further when you get into retirement and operating by a dynamic income approach that monitors your portfolio value and sets guardrails as to when you can give yourself a raise or tighten the belt a bit when things are rough. This is more personalized than just applying a percentage to withdrawal. Now, this system for planning can help with the next dangerous blind spot, but in addition to getting the withdrawal strategy right, you have to get the investment plan right to overcome this next one. And this is what changes when you go from a saver or an accumulator to a decumulator in retirement. So let me show you why the timing matters. This chart is an example of saving for retirement. Portfolio A has great returns early in life, but then bad returns when you approach retirement. Portfolio C, on the other hand, has bad returns early in life, but then good returns when you approach retirement. Then there's Portfolio B, which has the exact same return of 7% every year. Now you'll see all 3 portfolios, A, B, and C, have the same average annual rate of return of 7%. So if you were to start investing at age 40, it really doesn't matter if you have good returns early and then bad returns later in life, or the other way around. Over a 25-year period, you end up in the same spot during the saving phase of your life. But the story is much different in the income stages of retirement. Again, let's assume the same portfolios and the same pattern of returns. In all 3 instances, this retiree started retirement with $1 million and needed $60,000 of income annually, adjusted for inflation. Well, Portfolio C, the one that had the negative returns at the beginning of retirement, actually ran out of money before age 90, whereas Portfolio A, that had positive returns early in retirement, actually had more money than they started with. And again, all 3 portfolios had the same average annual rate of return, but when they earned those returns was different. This risk I just illustrated is called sequence of returns risk. It simply explains that in the income stages of life, early returns are more critical to the outcome. But because we can't control the direction of the markets, whether you're getting ready to retire or you're retired now, you have to consider a possible downturn in the markets. And because stocks fluctuate, they're most susceptible to sequence of returns risk. So having a pool of bonds and cash, conservative investments, can help to minimize the sequence of returns risk. So it's when, not if, stocks cycle downward, you want to wait it out. Take your withdrawals from bonds and cash, which can generally be more stable during market turmoil. This can allow the time for your stocks to recover. Well, you know how I feel about rules of thumb, so you need to decide how many years of income you want in the conservative investments. 5 to 7 years can often make sense. But let's take this a step further. It'd be easy to think if the stock market's volatile and a major downturn could expose me to the sequence of returns risk, why even mess with stocks or anything that has risk? I mean, just sleep better at night earning 5% on CDs. But for most people, unless you have so much extra money, that's not likely to work. And I'll show you why. So you've seen gasoline and food and housing costs increase dramatically over the last few years. We're hearing now that inflation's coming down. That's good. But what most people misunderstand is inflation coming down does not mean prices are going back to what they were before. It simply means it's not going up as fast. Economists call this disinflation. If we actually saw prices come back down, that's what economists call deflation. And that happening over any length of time may sound good, but it's the equivalent of the economy falling into a tailspin. Now, expenses like groceries and gas, they do come down. In fact, those prices tend to swing pretty wildly, which is why economists actually exclude food and energy from the statistic they call core inflation. But the overall trend is that prices increase and then they continue to build off that higher level. This can leave retirees behind if you don't prepare your income to keep up with inflation. And that's why being ultra conservative with your money is not actually safe. This chart compares the growth of $1 in stocks, bonds, and cash, or treasury bills, and this goes back almost 100 years. Now, granted, this is an exceptionally long period of time. Cash and bonds slightly outpace inflation, but stocks, which are broken down by large and small companies, significantly outperform bonds and cash. Now, our retirement years don't span 100 years, but even in a normal retirement timeline, the compound growth effect is very real. The ups and downs of stocks tends to average out over time. As you can see in this chart of rolling 20-year periods, annual returns were 8% or more in 75% of all rolling 20-year observations. Couple that with our previous solution of holding bonds and cash for your near-term income, and then stocks for the long term, and you've solved 2 of the blind spots. And just like that, we have it all solved. Not so fast. Mike Tyson warned us when he famously said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And that's the epitome of blind spot number 4. A great plan can be turned on its head when life takes a turn. And you realistically can't plan for every what-if scenario, but it's smart to prepare for some big ones. Let me show you in this financial plan. The long-term cash flow plan looks solid over the long term, and this stretches out to age 95 for both spouses. They live long, happy, healthy lives, but if your spouse were to pass away, have you looked at the consequences? In this case, the surviving spouse keeps the higher of their 2 Social Security incomes, but they also lose one income stream. It can bring that projection from what seems like a solid future to a much more delicate balance. So it may be death or a major health issue, and these are not small probabilities like getting struck by lightning. Christine Benz at Morningstar aggregated statistics on long-term healthcare needs, which I'll post in the description. Nearly half of all people turning age 65 will require some type of paid long-term care service in their lifetime. For a married couple, statistically, that means one of you will have an expense. So make sure to have the proper insurance coverage for health in your home. Review your coverage periodically, preferably with a professional. Take inventory of how your financial life would change if your spouse passes away or vice versa, and then have a cash cushion for flexibility. So just when we think dying presents the biggest challenge to your planning, how about the other direction? The reality is life knows few certainties. We do know death will occur, and we commonly talk on this channel why staying active can help you maximize your return on life. But what if you almost do too good of a job? You live longer than your money. No one wants to run out of money, but longevity can present its own set of issues. I had a client recently mention, I want to enjoy the money we've worked hard to save, but we're healthy, and I also don't want to run out of money. Well, that balance of enjoying the experiences of life and being wise with your money is an important consideration. So how do you handle the balance? Well, first consider strategies that will help reduce that longevity risk. I mean, one is that you can draw Social Security as early as 62, but you're penalized for each year you take it earlier than your full retirement age. On the other hand, for every year you defer your income until it maxes out at age 70, your benefit increases by 8% per year. You get this higher amount for the remainder of your life with cost of living adjustments. For a married couple, the survivor keeps the higher Social Security income of the two, so it can often make sense to try and get one of those incomes as high as possible. Deferring Social Security to get a maximum benefit helps provide some longevity insurance. Now, when planning, we usually run our financial plans out to around age 95 for our clients. If it's a couple, the chances decrease that both will live to age 95. But we have clients living well into their 90s and have had clients over the century mark. It's beautiful when they can enjoy their days without concern for having enough. Now, people often semi-jokingly say, I'll never live that long. And that may be true, but I encourage you to plan for long life and plan for inflation like we discussed. And then you can more freely enjoy the experiences of today, knowing that your plan is on a strong foundation. Now, I mentioned why these blind spots tend to occur. The planning changes when you go from a saver to the other side as an income taker. But I missed a big retirement blind spot. Actually, it needed its own video because I wouldn't be able to explain it thoroughly enough in this list of 5. It's one of the biggest 3 expenses in retirement that most people overpay, and they don't realize until it's too late. So you'll want to watch this video next. You should see the link on the screen, or I'll drop it in the description down below. And if you'd like to see if my team can help you with your retirement planning, we always start with a simple phone call with one of our certified financial planners. Click the link in the description if you'd like to see if we're a good fit to work together. Thanks for watching.